Lots of big, important news coming out of Indiana University. Not just what happened at Assembly Hall on Wednesday night, but also what happened in the football program on this Thursday. We have that and a complete wrap-up of sports on this week's special edition of Hoosier Sports Night. Welcome to this week's edition of Hoosier Sports Night. As I stated in the open, we've got a lot of news. First, want to get to the basketball team having a huge, impressive win over North Carolina in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. It was one of only 5 wins by the Big Ten on the day. In addition to that, the soccer team is unable to defeat Virginia Tech at home, so their season is unfortunately over. But our focus today is going to be on the football team. Joining me right now is our anchor, David Sugarman, and in addition to that, our football reporter, Drew Martin. In case you have not heard, Fred Glass announcing today that Tom Allen will replace Kevin Wilson as the coach of the men's football team. I think this was an announcement that caught a lot of us by surprise today. No one really expected this coming in. We learned some things about how they just came to this decision, but we never really learned about what decision was made and how they got to it. Wouldn't you come to that conclusion, David?
Yeah, Jock, it was, Fred Glass was vague at best. There was a lot of talk of philosophical differences between Fred Glass, the athletic director, and Kevin Wilson. What those philosophical differences were is tough to say. He mentioned leadership, but really didn't point to any specific examples. And there was a lot of controversy in the air for a lot of reasons, but Kevin Wilson signed, I think it was a 5 or 6 year extension at the end of last season. It's now 1 year later for him to be fired, and Fred Glass essentially said, I thought the issues that we had talked about were behind us, and he said maybe mid-season around November some things came to light and those issues weren't behind us. So I've got a feeling some more things will be coming in the next days, weeks, and months as we head into the off season after the bowl game. But certainly a lot to ponder right now for Indiana football fans.
Now, Drew, you've been following our football team all year long, and it was actually a pretty good and a historic year for the program. Talk about some things that happened on the field this year that, made a lot of people wonder if this was anything that had to do with the performance on the field that led to this decision.
Yeah, Fred Glass really alluded to the fact that it really didn't have a lot to do with the on-field performance of the team. The team is coming off its second consecutive bowl eligibility season, which hasn't happened since the early 90s. So to say that this team's improving would be an understatement, but obviously there were some off-the-field issues that they had to take care of, and look forward to this new era of Tom Allen being the head coach.
Which that's one thing that, is very interesting about what happened today. There is a little bit of continuity, and one thing that Fred Glass did say in the press conference is that programs are built with facilities and continuity. And one way to have continuity is to keep a coach in who is already on the staff, and that's something that we have now. Tom Allen is replacing him. We actually got a chance to talk to Tom Allen. Here are some of his thoughts, not only about what his philosophy is for Indiana's program, but how some of the other cases he's been, South Florida and Ole Miss, Arkansas State, how what he's learned in those schools are going to be what he implies here, but what makes our culture different at Indiana.
Down there, winning is pretty much the bottom line, whereas I feel here in the Big Ten, we really are focused on the complete development of our players. Yeah, we want to win and we expect to win, but I want our guys to get their degree. I want them to focus on the fact that they came here to get an education, and that's our number one objective. And number two, we want to make sure, we play at a high level, but we do that with character and with class. And I'm not saying that doesn't occur at other places, but I just think that there's more of a culture here of having a more balanced approach to the college experience, which is really what the intent of college is for in the first place.
So Tom Allen, just in case you don't know, he is an Indiana boy, born and raised a Hoosier. And I'm sure he's kept an eye on the Indiana program, which is part of the reason why he decided to become a coach here, which has been, the program's been under some pretty good success under Kevin Wilson. Can you elaborate on some of what the program's been through that Tom Allen will be inheriting as coach?
Yeah, historically, Indiana football has, not necessarily been a pushover, but has not been a strong team in the Big Ten Conference. But they have, when Kevin Wilson did take over his first year, they went 1-11, and then his final 2 years, they were around 500. So you could say that there was improvements on the field. Obviously, this didn't really have anything to do with the on-the-field performance, as Fred Glass had mentioned. But going forward, you kind of have to kind of take what Kevin Wilson established and really see what Tom Allen can do with that.
Yeah, some of the history that was made this year for the first time since the 40s and 50s, Indiana captures the old Oaken Bucket 4 straight years. We're going to not just going to consecutive bowl games, but earning the right to go, getting it done on the field instead of, you may not know, but the annual progress rate is how some schools will be backing into bowl season this year. Indiana's not one of them. Indiana got its 6 wins. 2 years in a row, Indiana gets 6 wins and is going to a bowl game. So as Allen prepares for the bowl, he touched on some of his preparation, not just for the bowl game, but moving forward, didn't he, David?
Yeah, he did. I mean, he basically said that everybody on the coaching staff is still there for the time being, and going to the bowl game, nobody's role, other than his, of course, is really going to change. And about moving forward, he didn't say much. He didn't say people were leaving or people were coming in. He just said things will be evaluated as they need to be top to bottom, which I think was not just the safe answer, but it was accurate. I think he as a head coach, will probably want to do certain things different than Wilson. He talked a lot about wanting to put his stamp in terms of building, continuing to build a culture here at both in the football program and at the university. So it's a bit of a wait and see, because outside of Tom Allen, nobody on the coaching staff, at least for the rest of this season, is going to have a different role, it seems.
So a lot of questions come out of today as far as, contracts and how much money coaches are going to be paid and what happens with Wilson and his contract and why was he let go to begin with. The only thing that most of us can come away with from this is that it was the Fant law firm or that handled it. We know the law firm in Indy handled the investigations, whatever they were. We were not told of any conclusions that they may have come to, let alone how they may have affected the termination of the coach.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to speculate because that's really all we can do right now. I think in the coming days, weeks, and months, we're going to find out a whole lot more, whether it be good or bad or indifferent. Today, it just seemed a whole lot of indifferent, and it seemed all very civil. But when you talk about first he said that there was an internal review and that players and coaches were asked about certain things. Those certain things weren't disclosed, and then. They said that this outside law firm was coming in and look at some things. So there's a lot up in the air right now. And, of course, we also saw a lot of players tweeting both in support and negatively about Coach Wilson. So it'll be interesting to see. Like we said, we don't want to speculate right now because we don't know any more than you guys at home really about what went on behind the scenes and behind closed doors here that led to this decision.
And that's one thing that's very key, and as Indiana prepares to move forward, we do have a few bowl games that could be up for grabs. We're looking at Dallas as a possibility. Detroit is also another location. Nashville, which is, a relatively close drive away, the same as Detroit would be. But the more likely location for the Hoosiers is probably going to be in San Francisco. Whatever the case may be, there's going to be a long haul for some people. Whatever the case may be, Indiana seems to be on the up and up. And one of the things that A.D. Fred Glass pointed to was that he's not going to sacrifice the brand of football or the brand of any athletics that we do at Indiana or that is done at Indiana. He's not going to sacrifice that for the sake of what other programs might do.
My focus is Indiana. So what might be okay at other places, what might be okay in an industry isn't necessarily okay here. And that doesn't make me right or wrong, but I can tell you that I came at this earnestly and with the best interest of Indiana University at heart, and I'll tell you that I'm proud to be part of an institution that puts doing what it thinks is the right thing ahead of competitive success, and I think we've had competitive success the last couple of years in football.
So at the very least, we do know a few things. Indiana has had a very good offense over the past couple of years. One thing they didn't have was a defense. That changed this season.
Yeah, that's correct. Tom Allen was given praise for the way he turned this defense around this season. They were getting stops in the red zone and making interceptions and forcing fumbles, something that we haven't really seen out of this Indiana defense in quite some time. So props to him for that. Let's see how he can do on offense to bring in the right guy, or either figure out how he's going to approach offense as a defensive-minded coach. So we'll be looking forward to how he handles it.
All right. Anything else you want to add, David?
No, I mean, I think, Tom Allen said perfectly when he talked about what he wants moving forward. He said defense is going to keep doing what they're doing, but talking about, you mentioned the offense has been so prolific in years past, and it sputtered, a fair amount this year. Richard Lago has had his struggles, and the running game has been inconsistent. Special teams, we know, has really, and he really harped on special teams and said that absolutely needs to improve. And so we've seen he can do phase one, be a defensive coordinator, do a great job at that. And now with a lot more under the umbrella of what he does, it'll be interesting to see. I've got a lot of faith in him, as a lot of other people do, both inside the program and around the fan base. So it'll be interesting to see how he puts his stamp on both the offense and the special teams.
It's, there have been a lot of coaching changes over the past couple of years, and a lot of programs have hired hometown boys. Ed Orgeron, now the head coach at LSU, grew up a LSU boy. Kirby Smart at UGA grew up a UGA boy. Mark Richt at Miami grew up a Miami boy. And Indiana now has its own. So it will definitely be interesting to see what Tom Allen will bring to the table for Hoosier football. We do have one more episode of Hoosier Sports Night for the fall season. Tune in, follow us on IUS TV Sports, on Facebook, and on Twitter. For Hoosier Sports Night, David Sugarman, Drew Martin, I'm Jacques Rozier. Have a great week.